Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to Own Being Unique TV. I'm your host, Myrhanda McDaniels, and today we have the special honor and privilege of speaking with the creator of Color of History children's coloring book, Miss Pamela Scott. And we also have Miss Joi Scott, who is not present today. Hello, Miss Pamela. How are you?
I'm doing great, Myrhanda. How are you? Thanks for having me today.
I am excellent, and I'm so excited that you were able to join us, considering your schedule. More than often, educational facilities within the Black community promote education. However, a closer look at school curriculums could display that perhaps the quote unquote style of education could have, in fact, miseducated many. Much of the literature regarding specifically Black history and culture is not only inaccurate, it's inadequate as well. Many of our children are forced to learn about events in history that don't relate to them, which in many ways results in a lack of interest. In conjunction to that, they aren't taught about historians or ancestors that look like them, which leaves many questioning who they are and where they came from. With that said, please explain to us what is the color of history?
Okay, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Color of History is a coloring book, Black history series. We focus on topics, just like you said, that are somewhat untold stories. They are told, but rarely told and not largely told, like you said, especially in educational settings where they should be told.
Yeah.
So our first book in the series is Untold Stories of the Underground Railroad. The next book will be Untold Stories of the Great Kings and Queens of Africa, because as we know, Black history started far before slavery of African Americans in the United States. And that's so true. That's exactly why we developed this coloring book series, this Black history coloring book series.
Yeah.
It was my daughter's Joy's experience that in school, she found that those students that were less aware of their history, those Black students that were less aware of the rich history of African Americans and Black people in large, those were the students that struggled with their identity and, as you could imagine, struggled in school and even expressed that they wanted to be a different race. And this was her idea of having the Black history coloring books so that Black children and children in general can learn about that rich history of Blacks and African Americans.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, and you pretty much tapped into the next question that I was going to ask you, just like how this all came about. Like, was there a personal experience outside of what Joi saw that prompted her to want to, tap into creating the series?
It was really Joy's personal experience. And when she brought it to me, I was very surprised, but also very, very excited.
Yeah.
I knew, my own personal experience was that when I first began to learn Black history or African American history, it was in the early 80s when I was in college. And it was really eye-opening. And it really made me change my whole perspective on my college career and my own education and my place in society and what I could contribute.
Yeah.
So if I knew that if it had that impact on me as a young woman, I knew that this information could also have a tremendous impact on children, and how much better if we could get this knowledge into the hands of children at a younger age. Now, Joi saw it as empowering and inspiring, and I absolutely 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's a place that this history is healing. I think that the more we know about Black history, African American history, the more we can heal in this country. And I mean that, by and large, not just for African Americans, but for, any American. Slavery was such a negative experience. And we have to, as a country, we have to face it in order to heal. Right. So I think that these books can also be a healing tool.
I agree. That's a phenomenal story, that she was actually impacted that much. And coming from a teacher's perspective, it's definitely something that's needed within the schooling environment, within many of these curriculums, because I've picked up books where none of the stories reflect any of, what we've gone through. And I also realized that a lot of the curriculums that are created are based upon historical events that take place, but they don't really represent us. So you have things that, are
exactly
beneficial to those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day, or, Hanukkah, or all of these different holidays. Their curriculums are based on these holidays in many cases. But then it's like, well, what about us? There's a lot of things that took place within our history, not just in the realm of slavery, but beyond slavery, that many of our young learners don't even know. And so the fact the fact that you ladies are tapping into this realm, it is definitely needed in a time such as this, where we need to know who we are, and we need to know where we come from, because many of that is trying to be erased even as we speak, and we can't allow that. And so the fact that you ladies created this is like proof that we can't allow it and we won't allow it.
Exactly. We have to fight, like you said, against laws that are, being written right now, that talk about how much of history can be shared. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, it's the Black history that's not that administrations or legislators are looking at not sharing. How crazy is that?
Right. It's crazy. Now, how is Recoloring Our History with Color of History's learning tools and coloring books helping the kids claim their true greatness?
Well, we know that African American history has some stories that are really hard to digest. But when we tell the story, we talk about the strength and the ingenuity, the strategy, the creativity, the endurance that African Americans embraced and used as tools to help them to survive and overcome and move forward in their lives. And again, when these stories, we believe, are stories that, even though they may have happened 100 or more years ago, students can pick up those stories and relate those stories to some of their struggles, and understand that, hey, maybe I too can. Like, for example, there's a story of a man that escaped slavery. He knew that when an enslaved person escaped, that oftentimes dogs were released to hunt, in essence, for the enslaved person. And so he developed a plan, and he said, I'm going to train these dogs so that if the dogs are released on me, I'll send them back home. And so that's exactly what he did. And when the dogs got to him, he told the dogs, go home, and they obeyed his command. And so, we believe that as children read these stories, they will see, okay, what can I do to create something, a strategy, using my own mind, using my own intellect, using my own creativity? How can I create a strategy to face whatever difficulties I have to face, whether they're at home or at school or in the community?
This is really good, because you ladies are pulling from historical events, where in many stories or coloring books we see young learners using today, they're very imaginative. So like they're pulling from their imagination. So the fact that you are pushing these kids to pull from a place of knowledge and a place of history helps them to really create a realm that will be beneficial for them as they grow older. So that is
Yes.
really, really exceptional. Now, how have your learning tools helped learners better understand their historical roots?
Well, at this point, it's just reading the stories and understanding that these stories are they're the stories that they probably haven't read in school.
Mm-hmm.
These are the stories, if they're an African American, these are the stories of your ancestors.
Yeah.
Maybe you have primarily heard that your ancestors, if you're an African American, were enslaved in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But and we hear the stories of the great leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, and such. But we don't hear the stories of what might be considered an ordinary person.
Yeah.
So we have the stories that are well known. We may have a few of those in the books, but then you have stories of people who were just or what would be considered ordinary people. And we think that that can help the stories to be more relatable, that
that's good.
You don't have to necessarily be an extraordinary person or extraordinary leader. You still have things in you that you can utilize to strengthen you in this life and help you to overcome obstacles and to rise up to whatever you desire to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the fact that you ladies are creating something, like you said, that is relatable. And we as adults understand that, yes, who many of these leaders that they always talk about are. And with our experience that we've had, we understand how we can obtain these goals. Like if you wanted to be a quote unquote leader in society, like a Martin Luther King, but making the stories and these learning tools more palatable for these young learners help them to realize, oh, okay, well, even if I don't become, someone like Dr. Martin Luther King, there's still these other phenomenal individuals in the world who, I could potentially grow up to be just like through what you ladies have created. So I'm really excited, for the many young learners that will tap into, reading Color of History, coloring books, and being able to see, themselves in what you ladies have created.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Why is knowing our history, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I just, I'm going to still go back into it. Why is knowing our history and seeing it properly displayed via learning supports so prevalent for today's youth?
Yeah, because, and again, what's going on in the legislature and in legislation is a clear example of why these stories still today are so very important, because our history has too often been left out or minimized. Or even today, we see that the negative stories are brought forth, but the positive stories are left behind. So it's important that in our community, whereas other communities weren't systematically made to believe that they were less than, or they made no contribution, that was systematic. So we have to go back and say, no, we did make a contribution. This is what we did, and we will continue to make a contribution. We aren't right now rising up and make a contribution. We can look and see that in every aspect of our society, we're doing great things. We're leading it and creating in great ways. We have done so since the inception of this country. And we need to know that. Our children need to know that. And that's empowered empowering, and that encourages them to learn more and to rise up to be whatever they desire to be.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Like, I agree 100%. You're absolutely right in the fact that a lot of society plays on the negatives of our community, when it's like we have so many other beautiful attributes than what is always displayed and what's always seen, whether it's via social media or the news. Like, there's so many different beautiful things that are happening in different pockets of our communities, and it's sad that
Yes.
we always get the short end of the stick. But it's like,
Yes.
us even now talking is proof and evidence that the work is still being done. There are many beautiful, melanated beings out here who are doing great things for our community. And the root of it is because we have a heart for these young ones that are going to come up next. So
Yes.
I'm just really like, excited, because it's really, really powerful. And a lot of times our kids just want to see a reflection of themselves and whatever it is they see out there, whatever it is they touch, whether it's a teacher, whether it's something on social media. So for them to learn about their ancestry through what you ladies have created, it's like they can touch this. It's tangible for them. And they can look and see like, oh my goodness, look at all of these wonderful things that happen within my ancestry. And I'm so grateful that these young people will be empowered and inspired by what you ladies have created. Like, I'm just really over here like, yay!
That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. How much fun is it creating for young generations to come?
Oh, it is so much fun. It is so much fun. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that I love history so much.
Mm-hmm.
History is an area that we generally, I don't think a lot of people think about a career in history unless they're going to teach history.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I never considered, oh, you can write so much about history, or how can you write in a just regular way, in a simple way about history.
Yeah.
So it's been very, very interesting to be able to do something that you don't see many people do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a joy to us. It's a real joy. It's a joy uncovering our own history and learning the stories and preparing how we're going to deliver the stories.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And because you ladies find joy in what you do, that means those on the receiving end are going to be as joyous, because it's coming from a very pure and fruitful place.
Thank you. I never thought about it that way, but thank you. That's very encouraging.
Yeah, you're welcome. What examples or themes can we look forward to seeing in your books?
We are developing supplemental sheets, I would say. I'm not an educator, so I don't know the correct terminology, but I guess I should say activity sheets.
Okay.
So, for example, we might have like crossword puzzles and word search and matching the definition to the word, that sort of thing, so that as readers engage with these stories, they not only have the art to that is a tool that can help them process the story, especially along the emotional end. They can read the story, they can process with the art, but the information can also be reinforced and as a literature tool, through the definition match and building their vocabulary with the crossword puzzles and those sort of things. So we are developing tools and activity sheets so that they can engage and have a additional academic components with the coloring book.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful in many ways. Like one, it sets you aside from many of the coloring books that are out there. Not to say that we compare, a contrast between what we're doing and
right.
what else is doing. But when you think about those old traditional coloring books where you just, color in a cartoon and then you throw it to the side and then you move on to the next thing, the fact that you all have these literary tools that can go alongside whatever it is that they're learning about, whatever it is that they're coloring, really, really sets you apart from these other, pieces of information via coloring books that are out there. So that's phenomenal because parents want to know, like, well, why is this important? Like, why should I pick up this, coloring book versus a Blue's Clues coloring book? You know what I mean? So the fact that it connects to their history and you have these learning tools that will continue to help develop their growth and literacy and all of those different areas, that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's absolutely phenomenal. Now, how many volumes do you have and for what ages?
Right now, we only have the one. The second one will be out pretty soon. And right now, we believe that, like I said, we're not educators, but we are working with some educators to help us determine things like as we develop those additional tools, how do we gear them towards certain age groups?
Yeah.
So right now we have a 7-year-old that reads it. But the interesting thing is that the adults that buy them for their children are very, very interested because, we don't know so much of our history in detail, and it is easy to read. So you can read a story is like a one page, like a one page about a person's life. Yeah. So it's very easy to read. You can read 1 or 2 pages at a time. That's so good. We say that, from 7, it's appropriate for 7 on up to adults.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And it's also excellent because you're allowing the parents to be a part of the process. So like sometimes we have these activity books where it's like you just give it to the child and you go on and you do what you're doing. And then the child sits there by themselves and they work on it. But the fact that you were tying in the component of the parent being a part of the process or the learning experience as well, it builds that community bond that we need anyway. So it builds that dynamic bond within the family, dynamic and the family structure. And it also gives them an opportunity to learn together and work together. And, grow and experience, what our history is all about. Again, I'm excited. Like this is not a small thing. And you said something that stuck out to me. And you said, we're not educators. And I know what you mean, but I beg to differ. Like you are an educator. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Like the reason why you are an educator is because you're educating me. You're educating anybody who you come in contact with. The literature and the books that you're creating is a form of education. So you may not necessarily have that background of being in a traditional classroom and teaching students, but that's not the only thing that defines who an educator is. So I just want you to know, like
that's true.
Are an educator. And
thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. And your experience also validates you as being an educator as well, because you take what you know and then you utilize that to help somebody else learn and grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Pamela, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited for everything that you and Joi are stepping into with this wonderful, wonderful creation. Before I let you go, or before we let you go, please tell us, where can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you if they're interested in purchasing your products?
They can visit our website,
Mhm.
colorofhistory.com, but we would especially love them to connect with us on Facebook. We have Color of History on Facebook, and we also have a private Facebook group, which is Untold Stories of Black History. This month, we're doing something very exciting in Untold Stories of Black History.
Mhm.
We have a Juneteenth challenge,
Nice.
and we're breaking down all the truths and things we don't know about Juneteenth, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So we would love them to connect with us. We'd love everybody to connect with us on Facebook, and they can also visit us on colorofhistory.com.
Well, thank you so much. That is so beautiful. It has been a pleasure speaking with you and meeting you today. I'm so excited for what you and Joi are stepping into. I'm really, really excited. Like, I know that this is just the beginning and there's so much more to come. So much more
Yes,
to come.
yes, yes.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to Own Being Unique TV, where we have the opportunity of highlighting individuals who take ownership of who they are by operating in their uniqueness. Until next time, peace. Bye.
Thanks again, Myrhanda.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you.